Going live.
Sure. Hopefully they can hear you.
Okay, we're live.
All right, we will call to order this meeting of the Woodford County Board of Education on April 19th. And for a roll call, all members are present, 4 in person and 1 virtually. Ms. Cooper says that there is no public comment, so we will move right into our instructional updates with Mr. Asher.
Hello, good evening once again. So I have several things to update you on instructional wise, and then of course we have Mr. Hunley and Mr. Reynolds here for some school updates. So I will try to be somewhat brief. I know we have quite a bit on the agenda. So 3 main things under instruction I'll update on is assessment update. I talked last month about that we are indeed doing K-Prep. We will do those, we will have that for levels 3rd through 11th. So 3rd grade all the way through 11th grade. Just a timeline for that, on May 10th through 13th will be our high school window, and there is some overlap here where 9th, 10th, and 11th graders, both in person and virtual, will be testing during that time frame. And overlap that I spoke of, May 11th through 13th, will be for our elementary virtual students. We have to make every reasonable effort to try to bring our virtual students in for testing, and we're doing just that. And then finally, May 17th through 21st is a combined window for our elementary in-person students and then all of our middle school students, meaning both in-person and virtual during that amount of time. I also mentioned last month that it is very much condensed, the K-Prep test. Essentially 1 section per content area, and much fewer items than what we're have experienced in the past. It is all online this year, so that is a change as well. But we're used to that and doing our math testing on Chromebooks and things like that, so that shouldn't be too much of a leap for the students. And then finally, there we go. A little bit louder now? Okay.
Yep.
Where was I? And the way that we want to treat this is obviously we want to do our best, but we're kind of treating it as do your best on that day of the test. So I anticipate there will be a lot less hoopla around it. You know, we've done K-Prep assemblies. We can't do assemblies, so that's part of it. But also just encouraging students just to do your very best at that moment in time on that test. And let's see what results we get. Because we certainly don't want to, we know what kind of year we've been through, so we don't want that added pressure on the students or the staff for that matter. So we are just going to encourage, do your best on that given test on that day. Any questions on that piece? Virtual Academy for next year. I last mentioned that we had sent out the interest survey, and this wasn't a commitment at this point. When we sent it out back in March, it was strictly just to see who might be interested. And results from that, K through 3rd grade, so our primary levels and 3rd grade, the interest was not very high. So we're still evaluating at this point on how to proceed with that. It may be likely, and we've heard this from several other districts, of not having a full virtual option for those levels, but like I said, still evaluating there. When you go to 4th and 5th, the interest was higher. We had 24 to 29. There were some that were on the fence at those combined grade levels. And then as you move up, the interest got a little bit more. With middle school, 46 interested, and high school was 75 interested. So what we're doing now is putting together the details of what that may look like, because we needed to know the level of interest and then appropriate the staffing and other resources. So we will put together those specific details, and then the application piece will go out the first week of May, on May 3rd, and then we will go from there. Because there may be some folks who said we're interested, and then once they see the outline, the specific details, they may not choose to move forward with that application. So that's where we're at on Virtual Academy for next year. Questions on that?
How many K through 3?
Total, let's see. So we had just 2 kindergarten. First through third, we had about 6 each. 4, 5, I guess it went in order, 4, 5, 6. First, second, third, in that order. So very difficult, obviously, especially when you just got 2 per grade level that just can't have the staff to support that effectively. And then finally, supplemental school year. I'm sure you've seen this, and I don't believe we spoke of this much last month, but that's been a very hot topic among districts. Basically, that boils down to the bill itself was pretty short, just 2 pages in length, and then that meant there was a lot that needed interpretation on specific areas. Specifically, the graduated senior piece is a whole part of that. The course access, meaning what courses can students take in the next year. In that supplemental year, athletics is a big piece of it, so there was a lot to interpret coming out of that. And we've got lots of interpretations to this point. We've been on several webinars last week. KDE came out with the first version of guidance, and then about a week and a half later, we got the 2.0 guidance just on Friday. So we have done our initial review with that and are still gathering information as it comes out. The timeline for this, and you're probably familiar, but the parents and students have until May 1st to make that request, and that is out there. Then the Board of Education has until June 1 to accept all or none of those requests. And then we have until June 16th to submit our implementation plan to the Kentucky Board of Ed. So what we will do is continue to take in those requests, leave that open until May 1st. And in the meantime, we'll provide specific details on our recommended implementation plan to you as well at some point to parents once we're settled on what we want to do in May in order to allow you to make that decision before June 1. So it'll be on the May agenda is what I would guess. At this point, the requests that are in so far, we have 17 total for our district, 5 at elementary, 4 at middle, and 8 at the high school that are interested thus far. And so that's our update on supplemental school year. Still more information to come, still more interpretation to get. There has been some confusion around it, I'll just be honest, and trying to sort things out. Any questions on that?
It's pretty straightforward for K through 8,
Yeah.
right? It's kind of high school that gets...
There can be a little bit of complicating factors with 8th grade, depending on if they've taken high school credit courses. So that can complicate things a little bit. High school is going to be more challenging. I think the latest round of guidance is really trying to put more emphasis back on district decision making, but there are some things that go along with that as well. And in terms of allowing students to either progress forward or repeat courses, and some of the things that you have to consider are 2 to 3 years down the road. And so what we have had in terms of initial discussions, particularly with the high school, is that we're going to have to look at each one of those students individually when it comes to scheduling and really map out what it is that they're going to take as best we can over those next 2 to 3 years, depending on where they are right now as far as the grade level goes. So it seems very simple on the surface, but it is far from simple once you get into the implementation piece. And
so on that one specific clarification that came out in 2.0 was that once they meet our graduation requirements, they must receive a diploma. The original guidance made it sound like if I'm at my appropriate level of credits, I can choose to actually get my diploma and walk, or just repeat my senior year and walk. But and this is by statute, if I'm correct, right? It goes back to that. Once you meet those minimum requirements of your district, you shall be awarded a diploma. So that's what he's speaking of. That may.
Well, and the only provision in the statute for graduated seniors is for the class of 2021. there is no provision for graduated seniors to return beyond this year's
Right.
senior class. And so that's why I say it's 2 to 3 years down the road, if it's a freshman, that you really have to map out what it is that they're going to be taking so that you don't run that situation where after their 4th year of high school that they've completed and they graduate and they're not allowed to return for their 5th year because that's not allowed in the statute. So it's complex.
I will say, I do think that you guys always do a good job as administrators of just kind of going over, like, this is up in the air. This is not within our ability to make these decisions. Things can change day to day. You have to look at the short-term and the long-term consequences. And I think you guys do a really good job of just kind of going over some of those things with folks, with parents, with students. Because like you said, it's not really, it feels like a decision you're making just for right here, right now. But when you really lay it out, it's a whole complex pros and cons kind of thing. And the district really may or may not be able to, what it looks like today may not be what it looks like in a week or 2 weeks or a year. And so I think that's really important that folks know that it's not going to be exactly what it says right now. There's a lot still going on, a lot up in the air. And even once it's settled, it can change. So I think as a parent and a student, I really appreciate that about our district. So thank you.
And just for similar to what we did with the virtual academy, if the interest is there, then just so we know, please complete the form or what have you, so we know what to plan for, and that would be the same for this topic. Any other questions on any of those items? Just briefly on equity team, we just met there. Nothing really new to report. We continue to develop our collaboration project, what we call our diversity project with LEAF. They have agreed to allocate $6,000 towards this, and essentially what that is for projects that are based in diversity and helping folks understand what diversity is across many different across the spectrum, and what this would be open to staff, students, community groups that they could apply for one of these grants to do an art project, perhaps digital media, history project, what have you. We really want to open the doors for that. And so we continue to develop that and hope to roll that, or plan to roll that out in August of next school year. So that was a big topic today. On top of that, we're just trying to figure out and talking through how to sustain our efforts that started with our district equity team down to your school level teams and so on. We want to figure out how to sustain that so it's not just a this year effort, that it continues on. And our action plan that I've referred to many times will help us do that. We've been very interrupted with that this year, so we certainly have a lot of work to do yet there. But we want our efforts to be sustainable over a great amount of time moving forward. So that was our equity update. Any other questions?
I don't think so. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll have the North Side School presentation from their principal, Scott Hunley.
Good evening.
Hi.
Thank you all for having me. My name is Scott Hunley. I'm the principal of Northside. It's my pleasure to show you a little bit about what we have been doing this year and brag on the school a little bit. So this is obviously an exciting, different year than what we're used to. So I decided to scrapbook a little bit. So I hope you guys don't mind. I figured that if there's a year to scrapbook, let's start with this year, right?
No kidding.
So I'm just gonna point. So from our opening day, we talked about being, I was looking up a quote because it was on my mind before I came in, and it was Albert Einstein that said, "In the middle of adversity is a great opportunity." And so one thing that we, from the very beginning, our opening day, we decided that this is an opportunity to be better than before. And so that has kind of been our motto and what we've gone with. Of course, flexibility was the name of the game this year. Got some news articles. Northside flourishes during COVID. So you always got to keep news articles in scrapbooking, right? So, all right. So what I'd like to present to you is just our morning announcements, our business as usual with a little bit of better than before, as I mentioned, and then building capacity within our building and being flexible and being resilient. And so, first off, our morning announcements, providing consistency during a global pandemic. And one of our main things is it was difficult to keep our staff and students together, and we didn't want the virtual students to feel like they were less or not part of Northside. And so that was our challenge, is how can we do this? How can we bring everybody together while still being in two different modes of learning? And so we also use social and emotional support through this. As you can see, we have a student on there. We have Miss Eisen on there. We have Judge K on there. And then me wearing a goofy squid hat. So we just try to support our students in all different ways. I've had a few people, I know Ms. Glass and Mr. Hawkins have been on the hot seat before. It was just a way to kind of bring our school together, have a little bit of fun, but connect and have that beginning of the day. And so we talk about in learning, we need anticipatory sets, we need hooks. How do you get the students engaged from day one? And I think it's important to note that in a year when it was easy to not be engaged, we still improved our attendance. And I know some of the virtual learning was participation. However, we still grew and they were with us. And that's what we told our staff from day one, make sure you see our kids. And we feel like we've done a good job of that this year. And I think morning announcements helps. It also allowed us to provide that communication of how are we going to manage these in person. So when we switch from virtual to in person, how do we prepare our kids? So we started a couple weeks in advance of showing them, here's how the cafeteria is going to be. Here's what I did videos, and we would do different things of, here's what the classroom looks like. Don't be scared. It's going to be okay. And we prepared them. And so we feel like this was a good communication and way to do that. We also brought in equity. We definitely made sure that we were trying to include different people. Yeah, our mayor, his face is that way because he was look. We did a this or that question, and he was like, I don't know what I choose. So, but we definitely wanted to bring in the equity piece with our students and family, and then also make connections to our community. We feel like Midway is a diamond in the rough, and so we wanted to make sure that we're reaching out not only to our health director for Versailles, but also our mayor and our representatives from the community. And so one of the things that we wanted to do in a year where everything's a little bit crazy is we wanted to just be business as usual. This is how we do school, right? We wanted, even though we're going to be in different modes, here's how we're going to be a part of school. Here's how we're going to continue to do what we do, but also improve. So we still had our academic PLCs. We were consistent in this. We did it, you can see we're doing it virtually right here. So we continue to do that. There's our learning log. Shout out to Ms. Eisen. She did a great job with this. She works really hard on that. And all our teachers that put in the effort. And so we feel very, very, very good about where we are with the standards, and we're proud of the product that we're putting out there. And the same with behavior. With the Northside Code has already been in place for many years. It's that PBIS piece, being safe, kind, responsible, and a learner. That was just part of the way we did it. And then also all of the structures that we had in place already helped support all the changes and the newness of what the COVID restrictions and healthy at school guidance was. We still had all of our tier 2 and 3 academics and behavioral supports. All of those were still in place. We continued with our interventions, and both academically and behaviorally. And before I move on to the next part, I think part of that was that the school had great structures already. It was already a very well-structured school, and so it made a lot of those transitions a lot easier because those were already in place. So shout out to Mr. Asher. All right, better than before. We started with learning recovery plans. I'm sure you've heard about this. We really like this. We think this was a great addition. We're going to keep it for next year. It's going to be called focus plans because we don't want to call them learning recovery plans anymore. But this helps not only drill down to the tier 2 and 3 level, but it helped our tier 1. And so the next slide will kind of show you some of our statistics. We were able to, students receiving support, 66 were getting tier 2 and 3 support, 39 ESS students. we took the entire first grade and did a blitz where we brought in a couple retired teachers and an interventionist, and they went and supported our teachers in first grade because that was a need we saw with the teachers in our learning recovery plans. And so we feel like this has been very beneficial for us. We didn't forget about our enrichment kids, and so we made sure that we're providing enrichment for those students. So in that number you just saw, we had enrichment students as well. All right, we all know that there has to be structure before instruction, this year more so than ever, and so that better than before is we are going to keep some of these structures that we like so much. These stickers in the hallway have really dwindled down some of the behaviors that you may have seen with students grouping up and touching each other and things like that. They no longer have those. And so we feel like some of those structures with Healthy at School are something that we will keep. We also, on the left, you'll see a instructional assistant that was quarantined, but she went above and beyond and just found a way to work with some of our ELL students while at home. There's a cat in the picture. I don't know where that came from. But also there was that communication piece. Our teachers got really good about communicating virtually with their students. And so I think that's opened up some new avenues of meetings and different things like that that we can use. So, building capacity, how do we invest in our staff to fulfill our mission and vision? And so I guess the question is, why do we need to build capacity? And for the left-hand column, we need to retain quality teachers and staff members that make Northside a 4-star school. In the middle, it empowers the teachers to take ownership and grow Northside. It gives them that self-fulfillment. And then finally, we need to gain different perspectives. I think the one thing you get with a small school is you tap into the same resources over and over again. So just empowering them and building capacity in other people helps grow our school. These are different ways. You can see some teachers up here presenting for the curriculum and instruction teams. And so also our MTSS and PDIS team, we separated this year so that we can build that capacity in more people. And then finally, flexibility and resilience. During our quarantine, we didn't want, or student quarantines, we didn't want students to miss long periods of time without instruction. And so what we did is we were able to bring them in virtually, and they were working with the teacher, so each quarantine student was able to stay with us during instruction in the classroom. So, students joining class virtually during quarantines. Sorry, I repeated a little bit. And then our specials, they were on carts, right? And so this was definitely a lot to ask of them because it was a big change. Everybody loves their own space in their own room. But they did it, and they were so graceful about it, and they were amazing. So really, really proud of what they were able to accomplish. Here's an example of one of our specials in resilience. She decided to go outside and do some cardio drumming. This is our music teacher, and so she was able to, you can see the smiles on their faces, kind of with the mask, right? But they're really excited, and it was just the creativity and to get outside our comfort zone a little bit, but also be resilient. And then finally, our Lion King, we were so proud that we were about to present our Lion King production. Yeah, and so, these are, the way they had to do it this year was a completely different way of approaching the Lion King this year, but really proud of the product. I actually popped my head in the gym this afternoon, and I just saw an excitement, and it's that after school where you see cars, and we hadn't seen them for almost a year, and they're coming through. I actually had a parent tell me she thought it was 2:40 because all the cars that were coming through the line, and it was like 4 o'clock, and she was like, I had to look at my watch to see if I didn't know what time it was. So just excited about what our school is going to have the opportunity to watch this, and it's just going to be a great thing. So it's nice to have that getting back to normal. So I thank you all for your time.
What?
Hold on just a
No,
minute.
you guys questions. I'm sorry. I was out of here.
No questions, no
It's not
questions.
that easy.
No, sorry.
All right, we'll go around and give everybody a chance
Sure,
to
okay.
ask
Sure.
any questions they may have. Ms. Springate?
I don't have any questions, but I will say that, I mean, it's just amazing. This presentation really was all about better, not about a year lost for kids or a year and a half lost for kids. It didn't feel like that at all. And we have a Northside alumni.
Yes, I didn't graduate. I was there for 3 years, through third grade, but Northside was.
And once you're there,
was
you're
awesome.
part of it.
Oh
So,
yeah, for sure. It's. I know those kids love
Awesome.
that. Yeah, that was awesome.
Very good. Miss Richardson? You're on.
I just like to say that I think it's fun to see the different ways that our teachers and staff are really trying to change things up and get kids involved and make them feel like things are trying to get back to some sort of normal. I think it's always good for all of us to have a little bit of a challenge. So if there's anything positive that comes out of the pandemic, it's definitely that, we're trying to reach out to our kids in a different way and get them excited about school. So thank you, Mr. Hunley, for sharing that with us. It's exciting to see that and to see how the kids are really enjoying this.
thank you.
Miss McHale?
And I would echo everybody else's thoughts. I think it's really easy to get bogged down in how difficult COVID's been in the last year, and it's really encouraging to see all the fun and even the new things in the way that you've grown over the past year. And the video that was sent out this afternoon was fantastic. Loved it. Can't wait to see the whole production.
Absolutely.
So, excellent.
Miss Casimir want me to tell you that tickets do go on sale coming up soon, so we'll let you know.
Excellent.
Please do. Miss Glass?
Well, gosh, I'm a huge Northside supporter. I want to say the morning announcements are a huge thing. I mean, that's like a thing in my house every morning. We talk about, sometimes she runs to the car and she's like, guess who was on the hot seat today? She's excited about everybody except Mom, because that was kind of embarrassing. But anyway, the cardio drumming, that was another huge thing. Major kudos to Miss Casimir. She's definitely looked outside the box, worked outside the box hard. She's done hard things to try to make it normal for these kids. So super proud of them and super proud of Northside.
Well, I would follow that only by saying I will tell you that in things that we do miss, the senior night, when at the board meeting, when the Northside kids get to come back and tell us where they're going to college and what they're going to major in, that is such a cool part of being a board member. And I know that we can't do that this year, but it's one of those things that I do associate with Northside and, wish their seniors the very best of luck this year and going forward. And yes, Miss Casimir's video today was very much appreciated. Those kids did a great job. And, some of the technology that they're using to rehearse, I don't think adults use very well. So that was incredible that they have been able to do such a neat thing. So thank you for everything that you and your staff have done for our kids. It's very much appreciated.
Thank you very much.
I'll just say, if you can't see Mr. Hunley's excitement and passion for what he does, then you've missed out on something. But it's not easy coming in for your first year as a building principal to deal with things like this. And not one time have I ever heard him complain, or his staff. It has just been the approach of we're gonna figure this out and we're gonna make it the best we can for our kids. And I think that was very evident tonight. So thank you for that approach and for always being that cheerleader leader for everybody at Northside.
Only regret I have is that I have a mask on. You can't see me smile as much as I am. So I love bragging on Northside, so thank you all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hunley.
Thank you.
All right, next we have Jeremy Reynolds, who is the principal at Southside.
All right, good evening. First of all, I want to tell Mr. Hunley we're going to claim Ms. McCowan as a Southside stallion.
That's
Have that straight before we get going here. So Southside is an incredible place to learn, so thank you for giving me the opportunity to come and speak on behalf of Southside. You guys go ahead. So we'll always start off with some cute pictures because you can't go wrong with those. These are some of our kids on Red Cross America Day, and we still had the opportunity to celebrate that this year and just dressed up and having a great time at school. All right, so Southside is special, and the reason it's special is because we have fantastic students, staff, and families. We have had so many trials this year, as everyone has, but the resilience of all groups, all three of those groups, is just amazing in how well they've done through these times. There are some silver linings, of course, that come along with COVID. And some of the things that we have there are that our kids have never been more excited to be in the building than they are this year. When they had the opportunity to come back for the first time in person, smiles every place. And so it's fantastic to see them. And each time, we've had, I think, 5 first days, kind of, if you count the breaks and everything. Each time they're so happy to come back. And so it's fantastic to see them that way. Another silver lining is the anticipation of reopenings. The reopenings of the fine arts rooms, of the swings, of the playground. There's one student who even said one day, it's probably been a month or so ago, he said that this was the best day ever because we got to go to the art room, we had pizza, and we got to play on the playground. Yeah, so most of the time, students just take all those things for granted. This year is definitely not the case. It's been fantastic. And then also, we miss our students who are still learning virtually. And it's been great when they do have the opportunity to come back in the building to see the smiles on their faces as well. And the other students just welcoming them back with all of us together. And so I thought I would actually just focus in on the big rocks that we have for Southside this year. And so our 3 big rocks are math, writing, and social emotional learning. And we'll start off with math. So in math, we are in our first year of the adoption of Eureka and using Eureka as our primary math curriculum. And we've seen some great gains in the fact that that Eureka gives a lot more rigor than what we have the previous program. And so that's fantastic. And it has built-in writing. And writing, as I said, is one of our other big rocks that we're trying to work on this year. And it just lends itself to that by the way the program is set up. And also the differentiation involved in it. It's scaffolded so that as you work your way through a particular lesson, that each question builds upon that and gets harder as you go. So your students who are struggling a little more may only get through the first few questions, and then the other students will be pushed to get all the way to the end of whatever that lesson would be. One of the things that we've done to help increase math and just to build the culture for math is, I must say, we did kind of steal Mr. Hunley's idea for morning announcements and kind of adapted it to our own thing. But part of our morning announcements was to do an estimistry each day. And it started off where Mr. Beatty and I, Mr. Beatty, the academic dean, kind of just led the estimistry each time. It's where you give them a number or an object, and they have to guess how many are in that object, and there are clues each day to build toward that. And now we are where classes have submitted estimistries, and they are the ones doing the presentations of it. So I have a clip here of a first grade class giving some of the... So we have Miss Blevins' class this week is doing our estimistry. And so guys, what is it that we're trying to estimate? Grace, you want to tell us what we're estimating?
We're estimating how many parking spots are in parking lot.
All right, so we're trying to figure out how many parking spots are in the parking lot. And of course, we do have that behind us today, so you give another little clue if you can't see already. And the clues that we have had so far are... Madeline, you want to do the first one? It's less?
It is less than the number of days we've been in school.
Okay, so it's definitely less than the number of days we've been in school so far. And Grayson, you want to do the second one?
Two odd numbers and one even number.
All right, so our digits, we have 2 odd digits and 1 even digit. All right, and then, Madeline, what is our new clue today?
If you count by 5, it's a multiple of 5.
That's right. So if we do our counting by 5 starting at 0, it's going to be a multiple of 5.
Yep.
All right, that should be getting it nailed down a lot. I think you guys are going to get the right answer when we reveal tomorrow. I'm confident of that.
Yes, you
Are you going to make us go
All right,
over
thank
and
you so
count the
much,
spaces, or
Gracie
just tell
and
us the
Madeline.
answer?
You really need to know the answer?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 105.
I was going to guess 110. I'm sure
Yeah.
I was gonna guess like 120 or something.
We were close. We were close.
Yeah, that's good. So this does build a lot of discussion in our classrooms each morning when they play the morning announcements. The teachers will either during that time or a little later during math time go through each clue and help kids or help to narrow it down for them. Kids will put their guess on in a notebook or something like that, and then each day hope to be able to refine those. And we do the reveal each Friday. So there's one new clue every day after the introduction on Monday usually. So it's been a lot of fun to do those. And then one other thing that we are doing right now to help with our math focus is we've been fortunate enough to be able to offer ESS with grades 3 through 5. The primary focus on those is on math. And so we have had ESS going since the end of February, and we'll run through the end of this month. Okay. All right, then our next big rock was social emotional learning. We knew from the beginning of this year that was going to be important, that we focus in on that. And so we have always had social emotional learning, or at least since I've been around there, but it's always kind of been a back burner type project, right? Something that you get to when you have time to. It's not, we had second steps curriculum, and I can say that, when I was teaching there, I did second steps, but it was never a focus, something that we just did because we were told to. But this time it's been much more of an emphasis for our staff. There's second steps and much more happening. There are social emotional learning things associated with Quaver and with Class Dojo and all those, just all over the place. And our teachers are making sure that each and every day that they devote 10 or 15 minutes to social emotional learning for our students. And going right hand in hand in that with parent communication has improved this year more than any other, because we have about 97% of our families connected on Dojo. And of course, when we're virtual, there had to be a lot of communication to make sure that we were all on the same page. And so I think that that's probably been more prevalent this year than any year since I've been in education. And then you have a picture here. It's just showing 2 5th graders. Mr. Muniz was fortunate or nice enough to paint a peace path on the ground there. And so outside our doors near the bus lane, we have a peace path which is for students to work through any conflicts that they have. And so each step along the way, it tells a different question that they're asking and answering each other. And there was a video to it, but it was several minutes long, so I decided not to show that with you guys. All right, and then our final big rock was writing. Writing has been a little bit more of a struggle this year than the other areas because when we're virtual, writing was one of the harder pieces to be able to teach and make sure the students were doing like they were supposed to. I know that they could type it, but when you're talking about your younger students, it's just getting that on paper and getting it back to the teacher and like you would normally would was a little more difficult. So I think that we are likely to keep writing as one of our big rocks again for next year. We have embedded that into our CSIP so that we have on-demand writing prompts in both the spring and fall that all the students in grades 2 through 5 are doing, and we're getting ready to take the spring one. Actually, some of them were given it this week, and that way we can have something to track our progress in writing. So there's still more to come on the writing front. So that's the conclusion of my presentation. I want to thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to talk about Southside, and we'll welcome any questions that you might have.
All right, we'll go in the same order. Ms. Springate?
I will say that all of my children are Southside alumni, and all of our elementary schools are wonderful, but Southside does hold a special place in my heart. I just think that when you're focusing on the students, the staff, and the families, you just cannot go wrong. And you can feel that when you come into Southside. You can feel that in the other schools too. But my experience is I can really, really feel it at Southside because I've just been there more. So thank you. I think it's a wonderful elementary and part of, a wonderful group of 4 elementaries in Woodford County, and I'm just so proud of all of us. So thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. McCown?
Thank you for the presentation. I love Southside. It was so much fun. The playground, I heard they've got like so many new things. The playground, I know the kids are excited. It's an awesome place. So thank you for the presentation.
Ms. Richardson?
No, I'm fine, but thank you.
Ms. McHale?
Thank you for the great presentation. I think interesting to see how grateful the kids were to come back. I know my kids were really happy to go back, and I hope that our staff, teachers and staff at the schools and district-wide, if they didn't know it before, hopefully they know it now, how much of a part of our kids' lives they are. Hopefully them coming back really showed that to everybody.
It certainly has.
Yeah.
Ms. Glass?
Yes, thank you for sharing. Being a new board member, I don't know a whole lot about Southside, so it was exciting to see a glimpse on what you guys are doing, and it sounds like lots of fun. So I want to hear more about the parking lot questions. That sounds fun.
And I will say, I love the thought of the silver linings on the COVID cloud. I think that's a really neat way to put it. And like Ms. Springate, my personal experiences with Southside. And one of the things I was just thinking, I've had a student at Southside almost all the time since 2006. And one of the things that has remained is the infectious happiness of the staff that carries over to the students. And I think that is a really wonderful thing for our kids to be so excited to come back to school and to see the people that they have these special relationships with. And I know, they miss being able to hug their teachers and things like that, but they are so happy to be back with you all, and we're very grateful to have had Southside and for all the hard work that all of you have done.
It is a great place to be. I have one note on that. My wife, this was last year, I think, when she was in, the cheerleaders were in to give some kind of presentation, so she was there transporting them, and every kid that came in was happy, and all the adults were happy, and she's like, I just wish I could work someplace where everybody's always as happy as they are.
It's a very
so
happy
much
place.
than what I'm used to. So.
And that's great. And I will say, they go above and beyond to engage the kids. I know the fifth graders right now are obsessed with their roles in the Revolutionary War. And, they've split them up and they've learned so much. And there's always that project at whatever grade level it is. And it's very exciting for the kids to be a part of that. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'll just commend Mr. Reynolds. He was, it's not always easy to move from within your building into a leadership position, but I think that shows that the folks there at Southside really understand Jeremy's heart and what he's about. But that is, as you said, contagious throughout the building. And everyone who works in that building, that's where they want to be.
Yep.
And that is very evident, not only to one another, but I think it's very evident to the kids. And so, again, not one complaint all year. It was, we're just going to figure this out. And we're going to do the absolute best we can to ensure that our kids, when they're here, have the best experience possible. And so thank you for always doing that.
The transitions back and forth were just really handled very well. You guys did a great job.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you.
Now we'll move on to the less fun part, but still very, very fun, Mr. Martello. I don't want to. It's just I don't think you'll have any pictures of the kids or any cute videos. So Mr. Martello will present the district facility plan.
I concur. It sounds exciting. Good evening. Tonight I'm bringing to the board the DFP draft plan as the first action item for the agenda. The district facility plan lists the pending capital construction and renovation projects that the district may undertake. And it's based on a 4-year cycle. We're due here at the end of June 30th, or at the end of June, for the new 4-year DFP plan to take effect. The committee itself is one that's diverse of teachers, parents, principals, and teachers. It's a group of 19 for that group that has come up with this DFP plan. Tonight is a result of 5 LPC meetings. LPC stands for the Local Planning Committee group of 19, and as well as 3 public forum opportunities. So a lot of input from a lot of stakeholders for a total of 8 meetings to receive feedback and go over that plan. The process with the LPC was done with a great assistance with Ross Tarrant Architects and Miss Sarah Lemire. Miss Lemire has put a lot of work into this project, and we're very appreciative throughout this process. Unfortunately, she had a prior engagement, but Michael is here tonight with Ross Tarrant if there's any questions. There's 5 levels when you look at the attached plan, there's 5 levels of priority. One obviously being the highest level of priority up through level 5. You'll notice when we turn the page or get to the attachment that the high school project, just for reference, is not listed as a priority 1. And the reason is it's already adopted in a BG1, so it wouldn't be listed on this DFP plan, but it is still at a level 1 within that process. The group that met within the last week had a unanimous vote. So the plan that is bringing to you tonight, the draft plan, was from a unanimous vote by the LPC. With that, and just as another reference, all these meetings that we've had, a total of 8, seems like a lot of ideas and brainstorming and things like that. As you can see on the draft plan, it goes down just to 2 to 4 pages. So a lot of work just for a relatively simple in terms of length plan. With that, are there any questions?
Just a couple things to point out as well is that typically, and this is exactly what happened here, is that the architect will put together the information that goes in the plan based on our inventory that is submitted. So they look at the current status of our buildings and then put forth the items that they believe would be most important for us to address in the next 4 years. So, and then the second piece is that we've had back and forth communication with KDE throughout this process to the point where we feel very, very confident that they are going to accept our plan if the board were to approve it this evening.
Mr. Hawkins, can you tell the new board members a little bit about the K-Fix and how that has been different on this district facilities plan, and then kind of how the DFP is tied to other things going forward?
Yeah, prior to, I want to say it was 2019, basically architects walked all of your buildings and put together an inventory just for the LPC process. And that's what was utilized to put together the plan. As I said, a couple of years ago, that's now entered into a system called K-Fix. Architects still do the inventory. They still put in all the information about all of the facilities. KDE reviews that, they sign off on it, and then that information is utilized to put forth for the DFP. And so it's a similar process, however, the system that is utilized is quite different. And then, again, what they're trying to do is address, these are what we see as the greatest needs over the next 4 years. Obviously, a new plan would be developed in 2025 that would cover those 4 years. And so you again list the most pressing needs based on that inventory that was established, and then that identifies the need that you have, your unmet need within your district, and then those amounts are utilized if there are any state allocations. It would be based on a district's unmet need.
Thank you. I think sometimes we have so many acronyms that the DFP coming from the LPC with the K-Fix, it gets a little overwhelming.
And as Mr. Martello indicated, it is a 19-member committee that is set by statute. And so there is a specific number of administrators, a specific number of parents, and so on and so forth until that list of 19 is complete.
All right, is there any further comment? Well, I know we all want to thank everyone who served
Danny, I'm sorry.
Of
Can I
course,
just
yes.
ask one quick question, just to make sure I understand this correctly. When I'm looking through all of this, the items under 2, which are capital construction priorities for after the 2022 to 24 biennium, numbers 3 and 4, Old Woodford County High School, I'm assuming that is this facility, right?
Correct.
So we're assuming these would obviously then happen post-construction of the new high school, right?
Correct. If,
Okay.
with the caveat, if funding available.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, all right,
Yes.
that's, okay,
Yes.
good, thank you.
Ms. Richardson, is there anything you wanted to add as the board member that served on this committee?
No, we had several meetings, and, you know, I mean, they were all very, very good meetings. We talked a lot. I think that I don't have any other questions or anything that I need to really add to it. I don't know if there's any other board members that might have questions.
I don't think so. And the only thing I was going to say is a thank you to everyone who volunteered their time. That's a lot of meetings and a lot of time spent, and I know as a board we're very grateful to all of them for doing that.
I want to say thanks to Jeff for his efforts. He served as the chair, and it's time consuming, setting the agendas, getting the meetings established, because there are timelines. Some have to be advertised in the newspaper, some don't have to be advertised in the newspaper. Some it's 1 week, some it's 2 weeks. I mean, and so being able to keep up with all that, and he worked very closely with Mr. Eaton, who was our facilitator. So I do want to say a special thank you to Jeff for all his work during this process.
For sure. 19 people is a big committee.
Yeah.
That's a lot of schedules to accommodate. All right.
Yeah, and I guess I should probably say that, you know, Jeff was very, very straightforward with us. He sent out very detailed emails and kept everybody kind of in the loop on what was going on. And, you know, he kind of came in on the hot seat with, you know, a very kind of heated board and situation topic that we're talking about. So he has done an excellent job and been very, very straightforward and very informative for everyone. So I do appreciate that. Jeff, I'm sorry I haven't given you, you know, the accolades that you actually very much deserve. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson. Is there a motion to approve the district facility plan?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. Springate. Is there a second? Second. Second by Ms. Glass. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes 5-0. The next item on the agenda is the appointment of Tim Eaton as the District Facility Plan Hearing Officer.
Yes, thank you. So for the second action item, again, this is a part of the culmination to finish the DFP process. Just one more step. We have to officially recognize Mr. Eaton, Tim Eaton, as his name was referenced before. He's a retired school superintendent who works through the Kentucky School Plant Managers Association, and we, by the rules of the KDE and the process, have to designate him as the public hearing officer for a public hearing to occur, post or in the process with the DFP plan. So I'm seeking that approval tonight, please.
All right. Are there any questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the appointment of Tim Eaton as the District Facility Plan Hearing Officer?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. Springate. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second by Ms. McHale. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion carries 5-0.
Great.
We will, thank you, Mr. Martello.
Thank you.
We appreciate your hard work very
Sure.
much.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll now move into the board agenda review as part of the planning meeting. Mr. Hawkins?
I'll just go ahead and let Mr. Martello go through the treasurer's report then.
Okay.
Do that first, and then we'll move to the rest of the agenda.
Sounds good, thank you.
So tonight on the treasure report, you know, as I present every month, we've got the three components. We've got the balance sheet, the monthly report on expenditures and revenue, as well as the cash balances by fund. And if you recall, the cash balances by fund is the one that actually go in a little bit more detail on those highlights of that report. That's the one pager. So if you look at the first item is the general fund, you'll notice we're at that point where we're not receiving those significant dollars in terms of revenue. We receive those SEEK payments in 12 increments throughout the year, one per month. And so you're going to start to see that balance of that general fund start to go down until the levy occurs in about mid-October. And so we'll see those dollars late October, early November for the tax revenue. So that's just one item to highlight for the ending fund balance on the general fund. Fund 2, again, like I've said before, those are reimbursements a lot of times for those federal funds and state grants. You'll see those fluctuate as we get money for state grants. Sometimes on the front end, and then the expenditures on the back end for state grants on federal. A lot of times it's expense first and revenue received after. So you see the balance there. District and school activity, just normal activity. Skipping down, you'll notice on the debt service fund that negative $98,000. That is the March debt payment. It's one of a series of payments that we have throughout the year. Skipping down to the food service fund, again, you'll see the ending balance for the food service is in the positive, which is a good reflection of Miss Courtney and her great staff that work very hard on that. You'll start to see those expenditures rise a little bit now that we're in person with those kids. Serving more of those lunches versus a virtual environment where they have to come and pick those. So you'll start to see those expenses rise, not so much for the labor, but the actual tangible food.
Can I interject with a question
Yes.
on the food service? I've had a few parents ask on the PEBT cards,
Yes.
did those not go out to everyone, the second installment? Do you happen to know? I should have sent this in ahead of time.
Sure. We can find out for you, though.
Thank you. I had a couple of families ask. They thought that there would be another kind of loading of their card this month, and it had not happened yet, so.
And are we talking about the meal card with the Mosaic software? Or was this?
This is
This is the PEBT. It's the state
Oh, okay.
basically issued those cards to all families.
Okay.
So we'll just have to check with Courtney
Thank
on the
you.
status of those.
Sure.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Martello.
Sure. Moving down on the daycare piece, a negative ending balance, but the good news is Miss Kathy Hogg and Miss Sullivan are in the works, and after we've received feedback to receive some additional grant dollars to help offset that program expense there. So we'll start to see some reduction, basically paying out of a different pot for expenditures for that program for ETC. And then skipping community ed and going back up to the top right, one of those big rocks there, the CARES. Not much of a difference, like I said before, we've pretty much spent our $480,000+. That was geared specifically to the district. The remaining piece of that is for our local partners with the St. Leo's and the Woodford Christian Academy. The second part to that with gears is Mr. Gibson came up with a great suggestion the other day. Is with our rotation, we have a 3-year rotation with our district, our student tech devices. So unfortunately, in this current environment, those prices of those devices, it's supply and demand are going up, pretty significantly, to the tune of an additional, we'll probably present later tonight, an additional $60,000. So we're trying to be proactive and use those funds in a proactive manner to help offset that additional cost and let that program fund offset that cost, at least for a portion of that. So you'll see that number. It may not hit in May or June, but it may be encumbered potentially in July. So just FYI, there's a plan for the additional 80-something thousand versus where we've only encumbered and spent the 43. Okay. Skipping down to the one-to-one device, the number's relatively about the same. I think it was $16,000 or $17,000 for a balance last time. With that said, I'm done with the treasurer's report. Unless there's any questions.
And this may be something, Mr. Hawkins, that you're going to cover. Were the allotments announced on the latest round of federal aid?
We do have that amount, yes.
And how much is that for our school?
I think I put in the email to you guys, 4.7
Okay.
million. And that budget will not have to be developed until September of this year.
And how many years to spend it?
3. You have until September of 2024.
All right. Are there any questions for Mr. Martello? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before I get into the agenda, one thing I just wanted to clear up. I think last month you had asked me, because there was some conversation about the fully funding kindergarten,
Oh, yeah.
and I said $500,000. That we will not receive $500,000. That is the cost to the district for fully funding full-day kindergarten. And where that comes in, and I'll just use this example. Let's say a school had 80 kindergarten students. If you only had a half-day program, you could operate that with 2 teachers and 2 instructional assistants. Because you could have 20 in the morning, 20 in the afternoon for one teacher, 20 in the morning, 20 in the afternoon for the other teacher, and 1 IA to serve both classrooms. As it stands right now, for our district, that would be 4 teachers and 4 IAs. So you have, in essence, doubled your cost to be able to hire teachers and IAs. And for us, that is just a little less than $500,000. So it's about 490, somewhere in that ballpark. So what we will receive is the SEEK funding for that other half of the kindergarten students. And we are going through and calculating that right now to make that determination. But I just wanted to clarify, we're not going to get $500,000.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be less than that, but that is what it cost us to actually do full-day kindergarten compared to what we would only be required to do.
Gotcha.
So,
Thank you for that.
okay. If we look at the consent agenda, you see the first item, and that is our donation request. Fairly straightforward in terms of donations, not anything out of the ordinary, quite a variety, the vast majority of those being monetary in nature. Fundraiser request, just a few. Actually, one going into next year, a request already for the Simmons Run for DC, but all the rest of them are spring opportunities for fundraisers. There are no travel requests. We have one grant request for you to consider, and that is for Safe Harbor to work with our local cooperative extension with the Butterfly Project. So we do have a request to use our school buses in July, and we have worked with our Woodford County 4-H camp for a number of years, and so it's allowing them to utilize our buses on those 2 days in July. The next item is we are applying again to get additional family resource centers in our middle school, and Safe Harbor would be one location together, and then our high school. We had begun that process last year, and then everything got put on hold, and so we are going to be reapplying again. We're very hopeful, but we'll see what happens. And this is for you to approve that assurance that is needed for that application. And then we have one updated job description, and that is for a half-time position that is already on the books in our district office. Any questions about anything on the consent agenda?
I had one question. As things begin to open back up, do we need to take action on allowing out of the district travel? Is that something you anticipate or no?
I would rather wait until we get a little bit more direction from the Department of Education.
Okay.
I think there are still some concerns and it's very different to me if they're going up and back. It's the overnight
Sure.
piece that I think there are still would still be some concerns, and rightly so. So
Okay.
that is to be determined. How about that?
That's fair.
If we look at the regular agenda, item A is the notification of personnel matters. That's everything that has taken place since our March board meeting. Item B is the notification of payment of bills. March was a busy month for board meetings, so we have one on the 1st, the 3rd, the 15th, the 22nd, and the 23rd. So everyone was in attendance, so you can do those as one motion. I'll let Mr. Gibson talk a little bit about item D. For our new board members, we have a one-to-one program that runs grades 7 through 12. And we have a cycle where we purchase 2 grade levels of Chromebooks each year. And so we bid that each year. And so grade 7 gets the new Chromebook, grade 10 gets a new Chromebook. And they keep those for a 3-year period. And then as those are cycled out, our seniors get to keep them. But as our sophomores, as they cycle out, then we utilize those in other grade levels throughout the district. But Mr. Gibson handles this bid process. It's quite extensive. And so I'm going to let him kind of share a little bit about what our recommendation is for you this year.
Well, one of the things, and thank you, Mr. Hawkins, one of the things that I wanted to bring to your attention, as you probably saw on the bid list, is that I am recommending that we go with the third listed bid instead of the lowest bid. And there are some major reasons for that. Number one, the 2 devices that have the lowest cost to them, which is only a few dollars. So you have to understand there's not a huge variance between 1 and 3. But the bottom line is there less devices as far as technology specs are concerned. Both of the 2 lower bidded devices have 16 gig hard drives. The one that we are recommended has a 32 gig hard drive. That's twice the space. The biggest thing that we really like, especially with all the virtual instruction and Google Meets that are taking place, is the fact that the processor for the third device is an 8-core processor, and it's actually the first time my team had even seen an 8-core processor in a Chromebook. Mostly they are dual-core or quad-core, and both of the lower-priced devices are dual-core. So to get an 8-core processor versus dual-core is tremendous as far as what it can handle processing-wise with all the video and audio that's going on across the instruction that we see now. So that's why we have recommended that. Again, you can see the dollar variances are not vast, even though, like Mr. Martello said, there's a huge difference between the bids from last year and this year. If you would have seen last year's, we paid about a total of $168,000 plus dollars. Last year, this year's bid is well over $200,000, and it's all where the pricing is. The supply and demand has definitely impacted us, as well as processing. Our processor manufacturing is way behind, and so those things have all contributed to the prices going tremendously up. I am hoping when we talk to you this time next year that the prices are more reasonable again. I don't think they'll go all the way back down, but if they even go halfway back down, it would be very nice.
Let me say this real quickly too. The 2 lowest bids, Bob puts together the specifications. Those lower priced bids met the specifications that he put out.
Yep.
This was a product that went above
Yes.
the specifications that were put out for bid. So I don't want you to think that the other 2 submitted something that was a lesser product. It was the product that we specified. This one was just above that.
Yep.
So.
But we all were thinking that the 8-core thing was totally obvious. I mean.
Yes.
Trust me, it was to Bob.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Concerns on availability and when these will actually be here?
I do, and I've actually talked to this particular vendor quite a bit, knowing that was the recommendation. to you all that I wanted to kind of line that kind of stuff out, and he has given us a couple different paths where we might even be able to get them, and I use the word might for certain because it's up in the air. But if things go well for us, we might get those at the time that we're used to getting them, which is about the third week of July, so that we can get them prepared for the first day of school. But even if they don't, we'll do like we did this year. We didn't get them this year till October, and then we got them ready, late October, early November, and it had kind of the blitz day here at the schools to where we could get them out. So either way, we'll make it work. But I am working with them where they're going to try to pull those. If you all approve it, they're going to try to pull them into their warehouse and hold them for us as best they can. That is something they're working with me on.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Gibson. Are there any other questions for Mr. Gibson?
No, but I will say thank you for, not just giving us the lowest bid, because sometimes people think that's the only way to go. And clearly it makes more sense to spend just a tiny bit more to get a vastly superior product that's really going to do what we need to do during these, digital times. So thank you.
For sure. All right. Thank you, Mr. Gibson.
Item E. We have a couple different bids. One is for workers' compensation insurance, and we are recommending Kimi for that. That's who we currently utilize, and they've been a great partner to work with. And then the waste removal is simply a renewal. That is one that we had in place since 2019. We had the opportunity to do an additional 2 years, and so this is the second year for that. Mr. Gibson, I'll have you come back up because we've had some conversations about this, and you can help me with this one too. We are looking at a slightly different fee schedule for the 21-22 school year. As you can see, our balance is quite low, and part of that is just simply because we've had so many more devices out in kids' hands that our repairs have been up dramatically this year. And so we do need to get, this is a self-insurance plan that we've operated since 2011 when we first went one-to-one. And so we are recommending a slight increase. I think we were $10 last year on the take-home fee. Correct. For grades 7 or 6 through 12. 6 through 12. And so we are recommending that goes to 15. And we are recommending a $5 fee for our elementary students.
And the fee was a few years ago when the board was looking at it, it was $25 for many years. Then we dropped it a couple of times all the way down to 10. And at one point, surplus was the conversation, and we've certainly dropped that, and now obviously we're almost out and we've got to repair lots of devices, so hence the reason to try to come to a balance where we're not all the way back to the $25, but we're a little more than the 10.
And yes, absolutely. When I first came on the board, we were concerned that fund balance was getting a little too high, and we're cutting those fees. So I appreciate you're keeping an eye on that and being flexible with that. Is there any discount for families with multiple children, or is it just the 15?
There is in the overall fee structure. There's still if you have 2 children in the program, not the system. In the one-to-one program, it's a $10 discount per child, but not on the take-home fee. So we got to make sure we're understanding which fees we're talking about. The instructional fee does have the $10 off. And free reduced lunch students don't pay that at all. Okay. But the families that do have to pay it, if they've got multiple kids, they get the discount. If they have 3 kids, it's even more because you get a further discount. 1 child, then obviously it's the straight up cost if they're not free reduced lunch. So a free reduced lunch kid in this circumstance, if they're a high school student, they're the only one in the family, they pay $0 for the instructional fee, they pay $15 for the take-home fee, whereas they've paid $10 in the past.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, are there any other questions? All right, thank you again, Mr. Gibson.
Okay, item G is an indirect cost rate, and this is It's just a standard approval. We have a couple of people who are on MOAs with the Kentucky Department of Education, and an MOA is a memorandum of agreement. In other words, they are still paid through our payroll system. KDE reimburses or pays us the amount that they're paid. So they actually work for KDE, but they are still shown as employees here. And so this is just the indirect cost that KDE pays us for those MOAs. Is there any question about that?
No, thank you.
Okay, item H, this is not necessarily something that we sought out, but we utilize Infinite Campus. That is the required system, student information system that is used across Kentucky. There is a mechanism through Infinite Campus which parents can pay their fees.
Oh.
And so in the past, Infinite Campus has utilized the different systems. This is the system that Infinite Campus is going to. And so it is simply, we are transitioning to this system that our parents then will utilize for paying the fees, as Bob mentioned earlier. I mean, parents can still write a check, they can still come in and do that, but if they choose to pay them online, this is the system through Infinite Campus that would be utilized. Any questions on that? All right, item I, we asked the board to approve us applying again to be an NTI district for 21-22. NTI will be different next year. It will be more like what we used to have with NTI, in that there is a 10-day max that districts can use for non-traditional instructional days. And so if you approve us moving forward, then we will submit the application. Mr. Wells will be leading that effort, but we would ask for you to approve that. Any questions? And then the next item is an SNDA, and I'm going to have to see if I can find that cover sheet so I can tell you what SNDA stands for, but it is
More acronyms.
yeah, and this is one I didn't know. So what is it, Angel? Oh, here it is. It's a subordination, non-disturbance, and attornment agreement. And if you recall, new board members won't, but former board members will, or current other board members will, sorry. We entered into a sublease agreement with Kentucky Youth Softball.
Oh, yes.
And that was for us to utilize. If you've been out to the softball field, you see the nice new building that was constructed. That we subleased that to be able to utilize that for our high school team. And we entered into a 30-year agreement with them, and we paid a lump sum to be able to lease that facility. The folks with Kentucky Youth Softball had their original loan with a bank in Lexington. They are moving that loan to a bank here locally. And so that bank is requiring people who sublease from Kentucky Youth Softball to sign off on this agreement. I have worked with Mr. Chenoweth. He has reviewed that as well as our original lease. And I think he was very comfortable with us moving forward with that. And so, but it does require board approval for us to take that next step. So,
Thank you.
and I believe that concludes the regular agenda.
All right, thank you very much. Did anybody have any questions on any of those items? All right, so we will move back to our planning agenda. And we do not have any discussion items, so the next item is the joint meeting of the Board of Education and the Superintendent Search Committee. And I think Mr. Martin from Kentucky School Board Association is here to talk about that for a moment.
I lost a soft drink bet tonight. I'm leading the facility plans in Montgomery and Kenton County, and Mr. Eaton and I had a little friendly wager of a soft drink, a milkshake. I thought I would get Montgomery County's plan approved by the board prior to Woodford County, and he beat me because mine's scheduled for next week. So I'll have to pony up and buy a milkshake for him. Dear Woodford County Board of Education members, I'd like to commend the Woodford County School District stakeholders in the selection of this group. And I'd like for this group to sort of come over here, please. This is your Superintendent Screening Committee. And I would like to commend all of Woodford County, the stakeholders who chose this committee. This is a great committee. It was so great working with this bunch. They took their jobs very seriously. The only criticism I would have is that their shyness led to reluctance in expressing their opinions. That was a joke, yes, okay. Let me outline the steps that the committee undertook to reach the slate of recommended candidates that they will present tonight. The first step was a paper screen where the committee analyzed resumes, application questions, references, and work history. A numerical score was assigned by each individual committee for a comparison number assigned by ranking the candidates. The list of 19 candidates was narrowed to 7 by this method. Then the committee developed the questions to ask the candidates in a Google Meets video interview format. The committee developed their own individual evaluative process to judge the quality of the response of each question that was presented to each of the candidates. At the end of the interviews, the committee members used all the available data to arrive at the slate of candidates that they will present to the Woodford County Board of Education. Upon entering executive session, the committee will present the recommended applicants for the Woodford County Superintendency to the Board of Education for their consideration. They will be presented in alphabetical order, and the search committee recognizes that the Kentucky law allows the local Board of Education to interview and possibly employ any certified applicant regardless of their recommended status by this committee. So like I said, great people to work with. We've had a good time. We've done a lot of work in this process, and they are ready to present in closed session tonight the recommended list that they have come up with. We are in session, open session of the committee at this time. So we're running a concurrent session with the board. So Chairperson Liz, I would like for you to seek a motion to go into closed session.
Right. So we're going to enter into executive session KRS 61.8101F to meet with the Woodford County Board of Education. Discussions or hearings which might lead to the appointment, discipline, or dismissal of an individual employee, member, or student without restricting that employee's, members, or student's right to a public hearing if requested. This exception shall not be interpreted to permit discussion of general personnel matters in secret. Do I have a motion? Second. All in favor? All right, then Grant, do we also as a board need to go into, do the same motion? Yes? Okay.
Yes.
Is there a motion to go into executive session pursuant to KRS 61.8101F to receive Superintendent Search Committee recommendations?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. Springett. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Glass. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion carries, and we will be in executive session now. Thank you all.
make sure it's still streaming.
We didn't touch anything, turn it off, but you never know.
It is. So, yeah, we're good.
All right, having returned, is there a motion to return from executive session pursuant to KRS 61.8101F?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. Springate. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Glass. By show of hands, all those in favor? The motion carries 4-0. We do need to note for the meeting minutes that Ms. Richardson was present for the executive session, but is not joining electronically now because we had a quorum to adjourn the meeting. Noting that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. Springate. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Glass. By show of hands, all those in favor? The motion carries 4-0. Thank you.